Hey, CRC students, so glad that I can join you again. It was great to be able to share a couple sessions with you guys a couple weeks ago, and I'm just really grateful to share with you a short devotion as you graduate and as you celebrate. And just remember what God has called you to and why this is so important. Let me tell you a little story. When I was a young lad, probably I'm thinking 6 years old, I took a trip with my family. And just so a little bit of references, I grew up in Canada, and I grew up on the western side of the Rocky Mountains. And if you know the Rocky Mountains, which most people have heard of, they're a pretty giant mountain range and gets very high. Elevation gets really high. And most of my extended family lived on the other side of the Rocky Mountains in a city called Calgary. And every sort of Christmas, like every second Christmas, we would try to make a trip for Christmas to go and see the family on the other side of the mountains. And so I was about 6 years old. We all piled in the station wagon, and Dad was driving us, and we made it into the Rocky Mountains, and a blizzard set in. Like, I'm talking about like one of the worst blizzards you could ever imagine. It was a complete whiteout. So I'll just to say how bad it was. At one point, my dad stopped driving because he literally could not see the front of the car. And so he decided, well, the only way we're going to get out of this and not freeze to death here in this, wilderness is we've got to find our way into the town. We were actually close to a town called Field. And he thought, I've got to get there, but the only way I can do this is if I go out to the front of the car, walk, 5 or 6 feet, and then come back, and then my mom's now in the driver's seat, and tell her, listen, you're clear for 5 feet, just go forward. And he just did that. He did that for a couple of hours of walking a few feet, coming back, saying, yep, it's clear, we're still on the road, and then going walking again, saying, actually, Mom, you need to turn, a little bit because the road's curving, because she could not see him. Once he left the front of the front where the bonnet was, she couldn't see him. It was just white out. So we did this, and this is in hours, and eventually Dad made a mistake, and somehow my mom ended up a little bit off the road and then stuck in the snow. So he went, oh, that's the problem, and he went to my mom and said, listen, just back it up, because we just got to get, redirect our tires a little bit. She backs up, and boom, she runs into something. And Dad's like, what could possibly be there? So he goes down to the end of our station wagon, and there's another car right there. And he goes up to the car and saying, look, what are you doing? And they're like, they were like freaked out. They're like, we are going to die out here. We've been following your brake lights, because they could see the brake lights. We've been following your brake lights for the last hour, and we're petrified of losing you. So he said, we're in a snowbank. And the person in the car actually said to him, I will not back up, because if I lose you, I will die. And so he was like, what? And then he went back to behind that car, and there was another car that was following that car's taillights. There was actually about 5 or 6 cars, all in this really condensed, slow-moving train of cars that were petrified of losing the taillights of the car in front. And that story reminds me, it's like, because we went in that little tiny train, super slow moving train. My dad walked in front, back and forth, eventually got my mom out, and then we were able to keep going. And he led that train of 5 or 6 cars all the way into the town of Field, and everybody was saved and everybody was fine. And it's all because somebody was there to lead when nobody else could see. And it just reminded me of the story that's found in Matthew chapter 9, when Jesus, it says in verse 35, Jesus went throughout all the cities and villages, teaching in their synagogues, proclaiming the gospel of the kingdom and healing every disease and every affliction. And when he saw the crowds, he had compassion for them, because they were harassed and helpless like sheep without a shepherd. Then he said to his disciples, the harvest is plentiful, but the laborers are few. Therefore pray earnestly to the Lord of the harvest to send out laborers into his harvest. That story reminds me about what Jesus sees about people. People need shepherds. When he looks at humanity, there's not kind of like like condemnation or hatred or anything like that. He's full of compassion. And he's like, these guys, they need shepherds. And so he tells the disciples, start praying for more shepherds. That's what you're supposed to do. And my friends, as you are graduating this learning that you've done now, the whole thing that stirred your heart to want to know more about Jesus, know more about his word, and have something to offer to somebody else to help them, that desire was started by that prayer. Because disciples of Jesus have been praying and re-praying that prayer ever since Jesus said it. There used to be one shepherd, Jesus, and then Jesus developed more shepherds and more shepherds and more shepherds and more shepherds, and every shepherd praying for that next generation of shepherds because the world needs more shepherds. And my friends, that's you. That's what happened. You, through the training that you've got, have got something to help guide somebody else. But you've got to be close to them for that to work. If you just stay in your house, stay in your home, stay in your group, you'll never connect. You see, when I was telling that story about those taillights, if the people in the cars behind were petrified of losing sight of my dad's taillights, because if you get too far away, you don't know where the guide is. So it's two things with us. We've got to get close to people. Average, regular, everyday, broken people. We've got to bring our shepherding, our light, our taillights to people and just get close. And then let all of that work, that training, that teaching, that development that you've had, let that be an opportunity to shepherd somebody out of that chaos that Jesus sees. You know, the people of this world, the people in our community, maybe even people in your church, they're just harassed and helpless. They need a shepherd, and that's you. And that's why I feel so grateful about as a shepherd myself, that I actually, because I love Jesus, my shepherd, so much, I'm just so grateful that I get a chance to shepherd others. I just got to get close enough so that my taillights shine in their eyes, and then I can lead them somewhere. And that's you. You are going to be that guide. You are going to be that light. You're the shepherd. God bless you, and I'm really grateful and excited for the ministry, the calling that's in front of you. Have a great one. God bless.